Welcome to the Retirement Planning Show, your source for financial strategies to help you retire with confidence. Featuring Chip Coughlin of Retirement Income Analysts in Syracuse, New York. Chip is a registered representative, and securities are offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratus Wealth Partners, Ltd. Retirement Income Analysts and Stratus Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. And now, here are your co-hosts, Matt Halloran and Chip Coughlin.
Hi, I'm Matt Halloran, joined as always by Chip Coughlin, founder of Retirement Income Analysts in Syracuse, New York. Welcome to the Retirement Planning Show. We're continuing our discussion with Chip about the class he teaches at local colleges to help people in the greater Syracuse area learn about retirement planning today. Good day, Chip. How are you?
Fine, Matt. How is your day going?
It is going very, very well, and I'm very happy to continue our discussion. We're going to talk about life planning. We're continuing the discussion. That's where we ended up on our last podcast. So break down life planning for our listeners and the 9 categories, please.
Okay. I would start with a successful retirement may be achieved through planning and preparation in many areas of life, including, and this is our life planning list, education and growth, health and fitness, leisure and recreation, spirituality, career and work, financial, home, relationships, and finally, community and charity.
On our last podcast, we talked about this being a huge difference maker with what you do at the Retirement Income Analysts and what other financial services professionals do, because you're having this conversation, these 9 categories. And as we stated before, the 6th one is financial, where that's where a lot of financial advisors start. You're going to start with some of the other areas that we're going to dive into today. So here's what I'm going to ask for all of our listeners is I'd like you to grab a piece of paper. So you can pause the recording and go grab a piece of paper and then start the recording again, because what Chip and I are going to do here over the next probably 20, 25 minutes or so is he's going to go over the questions that you need to ask yourself. Now, you can answer them immediately by saying yes or no or maybe or however you really want to answer them, or you can take down the questions, which we will put in the show notes, by the way, and think about them. Because some of these questions Chip's going to ask are really deep philosophical questions that might take you a little while to come up with a good strategic answer. And when you do get done with these 9 categories, you can either take them to Chip at the Retirement Income Analysts, or you can take them to your advisor and say, we need to talk about this when it comes to my retirement plan. So let's talk about education and growth, the first category.
Okay, the questions I would ask in terms of education and growth, number 1, do you want to continue learning during retirement? And I would tell you, being a life learner is a great place to be, because there's always something new to learn, something to grab your attention, something to do some research about, and that's the good thing. Number 2, do you know what you already want to learn about? Perhaps you've thought of several areas that you might want to learn about. Number 3, do you plan to take adult education non-credit courses? Those are exceptional. I myself have done that. I took an adult education course on sailing when I wanted to learn how to sail. It's crazy. I'm taking a course in a classroom about sailing, but it taught me the basic things I needed to know to get out on the lake and make it go. Number 4, I plan to pursue a degree in retirement. And number 5, I plan to return to school before retirement to prepare for a second career after I retire from my first one. And those are so important because we've had many of our clients who I would consider to be lifelong learners really go after the adult education. And they're looking in their school districts, they're looking through the local universities or colleges, and they're picking out courses that are really adding value to their lives and really keeps their mind engaged. And as you know, in retirement, you got to keep your mind engaged or else it goes out to pasture. So taking these classes for many of my clients is a great thing, and it keeps them engaged, it keeps them thinking, it keeps them planning. And the outcome is tremendous.
If you're listening to this with your significant other, please make sure you're both answering these questions independently, because this can actually be quite eye-opening. I've found in working with advisors like Chip that having these life planning conversations really opens up a substantial dialogue between you and your significant other if you have one. So don't make assumptions that your life partner, your spouse, might want to do something. Actually have the conversation. Now, Chip, I'm going to have you drill down on this education and growth with just a financial view on this. So let's say I do want to go back to college. How does that impact my retirement? Do I take out student loans potentially? Are there grant opportunities or scholarships opportunities for people who are going back for either a second career or somebody who's trying to pursue their degree much later in life?
Well, there's a number of possibilities. I know in this town, we have a university, we have multiple colleges, we have a community college, and we have what's called university college. It's put on by the university, but it's a smaller subset. And within each of those institutions, there's some great classes the client can take. And when you look at the cost of those, some of them are free, some of them you have to pay minimal for. If you went back to school and got a degree, you could build that into your retirement plan so that you could finance that. But in the absence of getting a degree, taking adult ed classes and things like that, many of them are free or a minimal cost. And I would say the cost is always offset by the value you take away. Again, I'll say that again. The cost of the class is minimal compared to the value you will walk away with from that class. So I encourage all of my clients to find areas of interest and jump in with both feet. It's rewarding, and it keeps you motivated and moving along.
Health and fitness is something that I don't think enough people address, because I heard a wise man once say that most people give up their health to achieve their wealth, and then they have to spend down their wealth very quickly to maintain a level of health. Let's talk about health and fitness. What questions should our listeners write down and answer for themselves?
Well, and again, this is very important because the healthier you are, the longer you're going to live, the more enjoyable life you're going to have. So the first question is, are you concerned about your health during retirement? And we hope the answer to that is yes, because you need to be an active participant in your health. 2, are you currently taking steps to maintain good health for retirement? And again, it's not like flipping a switch. One day you're unhealthy, today I flip the switch and I'm healthy. It's a process, and you have to stay after it on a continual basis. Number 3, I currently participate in a physical activity or a sport, and I plan to continue doing that during retirement. I had a retiree in yesterday, 66 years old, and he was going to be out skiing today. And he skis with a group of guys. They meet once a week, and it's exceptional. He's out, he's social, he's doing a physical activity. It's a winner on so many fronts. Number 4, perhaps you desire to begin a new fitness activity or sport during retirement. A little pre-planning there always helps. What is your area of interest? How are you going to participate? What does it take to participate? Where is it going to be held? And things like that. And the last one is, I have made plans for my long-term health care if needed. Many times people retire and they don't know where they're going to get their health insurance. So a little pre-planning there so that you can feel confident that you've got good coverage that's acceptable to you, that's cost effective, and things like that makes a huge difference. So again, a little pre-planning, not the day before you retire, but in the years leading up to retirement.
Chip, I had a client of mine a number of years ago who was a financial advisor in Colorado, and he used to do an annual trip down whitewater rafting down I think class 3, which is pretty crazy. And the average age of the participant was 74 years old. Now, from a life insurance standpoint, I don't know if that's the best idea, but that's one of those things and it was something that people look forward to. And he ended up having to add a second and then a third date because so many people wanted to go down the river with him because, one, it was on their bucket list, which you talked about in your last podcast. And he had always focused on health with his clients to the point where they were healthy enough to paddle their tuchuses off running down a river.
Yeah, I think that's exceptional. I would bet if you took a picture anywhere along that rafting trip every person in that boat would either have a tremendous smile on their face or they would have a really exceptional I'm scared face on. But it's invigorating.
Yeah.
I've done the whitewater rafting, and I'll tell you what, it's invigorating when you're doing it. And that's exceptional. But take a picture and look at all the smiles on their faces.
Yeah.
I'm always encouraged when my clients come back from a trip and they show me the pictures, and they all have smiles on their faces. They all do. It's uplifting. It's beautiful. We had a client just recently. They wanted to take the guilt-free vacation, so they went to Alaska, and they took a train, they took a bus, they took a boat, and they saw the glaciers, they saw the mountains, they saw all this great stuff in Alaska. And I said, bring me the pictures. So the next time they came in, they brought me the pictures. I got to tell you, I want to take that trip. The best advertisement for that trip was the smile on these people's faces in every photograph.
Leisure and recreation are the next. So it's interesting because a lot of these are actually they're connected, right? So not just talking about the overall education, health and fitness, but now we're talking about leisure and recreation, which is the third category of the 9 areas of life planning. So what sort of questions do our listeners need to answer for themselves?
Okay, number one, have you planned at least one weekly leisure or recreational activity for retirement? So what we're asking for is put something on your list, put it in your schedule once a week, and have something to look forward to, okay? Number two, I plan to take one or more yearly vacations during retirement. It's a fact people spend more time planning their vacations than they do their finances. Well, once you get to retirement, your finances are okay. Now you got to put that energy into planning that vacation and take a tremendous vacation. Go somewhere new every year. Experience a new culture. Experience a new lifestyle. Experience something that's different. And again, take lots of pictures to show Chip, but go do it and make it a priority. Number three, do you have a hobby that you plan to continue during retirement? And many of our clients have hobbies. Many of them in their working years didn't have a lot of time to devote to their hobby. Now that they're retired, they can jump in with both feet. And that's exceptional because the hobby gives them such positive feedback. Number four, do you enjoy attending arts and entertainment events? Again, a little bit of pre-planning here, and you can see all these different events that are going on, many that you can attend for free, so it won't rock your budget. But if you have an area of interest, you can find an activity or an entertainment event that would fill that bill, and it's exceptional. We have a house in the Adirondacks, and we get this magazine. Adirondacks are the mountains in New York State. And we get this magazine, and in the back of the magazine, it lists all the activities going on for the next 3 months. And my God, if I was retired, I'd be going to one of those every week. And they're diverse. There's, from taking ice out of the lake, cutting ice out of the lake. There's ice sculpture. There's winter festivals. There's things to do in the summer. There's fall harvest festivals and things like that. And those we go to them when we can, but we can't go every week. But they're exceptional. They're very uplifting. It's a great way to see America as well. And the last question is, do you participate in recreational activities with others? Do your recreational activities involve others? Do you run with a group? My wife plays tennis with a group every Thursday night, and it's a rough group, rough in terms of every Thursday it's a different couple different people in the group, but it's a large group, and they get together and they just really enjoy it. And they're mostly retired. My wife's not retired yet, so she's the youngster in the group, but they're mostly retired, and they love to get together and have a little fun every Thursday night. It's competitive to a point, but it's not the competition that brings them back, it's the camaraderie. So it's a good thing.
When you're answering these questions, make sure you leave space and begin the discussion with your spouse or significant other on what you want to do with these. Where do you want to take vacations? What hobbies? What arts and entertainment events do you want to go to? Are you going to take up tennis, just like Chip's wife, and what group are you going to do it with? The more specific you can be, especially with your advisor, the better result you're going to have from a planning perspective. All right, Chip, we're going to dive into something here that I think our listeners might be a little surprised that you have this conversation, but it's very, very important to a lot of people, at least here in the United States, and that's spirituality. Break that down.
Okay. Within spirituality, we're going to talk about 5 key areas. Do you pursue spiritual activities that give your life more meaning and purpose? Okay. Number 2, do you plan to invest more time developing a spiritual relationship during retirement? Number 3, do you plan to volunteer your time during retirement to support spiritual causes? And number 4, do you contribute money to support spiritual causes? And number 5, do you include gifting to spiritual causes in your estate plan? And, that's a real interesting concept, because when we go over the estate plan, the question always comes up, do you have a special group or entity that you want to benefit, different than your family and things like that, that has great meaning for your life here, and you could make a donation and have carry on the mission, so to speak. And many of our clients desire to do that. So when they get together with their attorney, we've given them a hit list of what's important. Obviously, their spouse, their children, their grandkids, and things like that. But many of them, not all, but many have special areas of interest. Like the Humane Society comes up quite often, where they want to give money to that cause to make sure it's funded well on an ongoing basis. These questions are great questions, and people shy away from these for some reason, but you have to have answers for these questions, and the answers can add meaning to your life.
Well, continuing on with meaning in your life, the next section that you're going to talk about when it comes to the 9 areas of life planning are career and work. So this is, you're done with one phase of work, and here are the questions that you should ask yourself if you're going to be moving into a different direction. So what are those questions, Chip?
Okay, as far as career and work goes, can you be happy not working at anything? All right, tough question, because many people derive the satisfaction in their life from their job. Okay, and if you don't have a job, how do you define your life? What gives your life meaning at that point? Number 2, I plan to work for pay or volunteer during retirement. And again, we like the volunteering. It gives purpose. It provides direction. It keeps the clients getting out of bed in the morning with something to do on their schedule. Number 3, I would like to change the focus of my current work so I can enjoy it more. Well, and we asked the client this, if you could stay in your current job and change just a few parts of your job to make it more enjoyable, what would it be? And many of them, when they try to take the hybrid retirement route, we try to identify the parts of their job they don't like and see if we can eliminate that, so that when they do go to work, they're energized and they're not bogged down in the mundane things that each job has to a point. Number 4, do you plan to change careers or start your own business during retirement? Could you take that hobby and make it into a for-profit experience for yourself? And you got to know, number 5 is you have to know how you'll answer the question, so what do you do now when you're no longer working? And that's a real tough one. Again, it goes back to what I said first in this section is how do you define yourself? Do you define yourself by your work? Do you define yourself by your family? If you don't have a job, how do you see yourself? And I think a successful retirement and being happy is the ultimate definition of who you are. And you have to be able to answer that question, because so many times people define themselves by their job, and the positive things they get out of life is just their job. And if you're not working anymore, where are you going to find that happiness?
There are some really crazy statistics that came out from the AARP that if you don't have something to retire to, your average lifespan is 10 years less after retirement than it would be if you have something to retire to, like you've been talking about.
Oh, that's so true. We have had clients that really didn't have a good idea of what they wanted to do. They defined themselves by their job. And once they retired, they had nothing going on. And they were basically sitting on the couch and watching Sports Center all day. And that's a quick way into the ground, so to speak, because you're not being challenged. Your mind is not working. You're not engaged. You're not moving around. You're not pursuing a physical aspect or something like that. You have to get up and get moving. And I tell my clients, simply put, what is going to get you out of bed in the morning when you're retired? Because if you have nothing to do, you have no reason to get out of bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And staying in bed's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
And the satisfaction quotient is not there. So you need something to do. And you're so right, Matt, that if you have nothing to do in retirement, you've got no motivation. Life becomes a series of gray pictures, I think.
Yeah.
It's not bright.
Yeah, it's not bright. It's just bleak and gray. And yeah, when you don't have any reason to get out of bed in the morning, good man, that really does change how long you're going to be on this planet. Well, the next section is financial, which again, I want to highlight to the audience that this is actually the hierarchy that Chip uses within his practice, and financial happens to be number 6. It is very, very important. And again, please make sure that you're answering these questions for yourself and having your spouse answer that specifically, or significant other, so that you guys can have a conversation. And this, along with spirituality, really are two things that a lot of people don't see long-term eye to eye on. So these are really important questions. So Chip, break down these next set of questions.
Okay, in terms of financial, I would say that money isn't the most important thing in life, but many of the important things are not free. So when we go through this exercise, the first question is, do you know what's important about money to you? Okay, and what can you do with your money? What is the power of those dollars? Number 2, do you believe Social Security will supplement your retirement income? Many, many people have questions about Social Security. We answer those questions every day. And the biggest question there is Social Security going to be around when I need it? And I'm pretty positive on Social Security. I've read the statistics. I think it is going to be around. So it's something we can count on. And you've earned it, and you're going to take it. And when you take it, though, is the big defining factor. If you can do that successfully. Do you take it at 62? Do you wait till age 70? How does that work? And we go through that with everybody. Number 3, are you concerned about not having enough money during retirement? Okay, and that's a burden. That's a thought that could weigh on your mind tremendously. Am I going to make it? And we had a home builder that built great houses. He's still a client, but he put so much into his company that he almost didn't save enough for himself. And he wondered how he was going to make it during retirement. And we said, gee, you could do some side jobs on your own and things like that. But because of being a builder his whole life, he was pretty beat up physically. And he had such a tough attitude about this. Am I going to make it in retirement? And we had to sit down with him on numerous occasions and say, okay, you weren't the greatest saver, but here's what you've got. Here's what Social Security is going to give you. Here's what your budget is telling me you're spending money on every month. You're going to be able to make it. And it took a while for that to sink in. As long as he lived within his means and allocated his resources correctly, he was going to make it. Number 4, do you have enough money to make life choices that you want to make? And again, a larger retirement account versus a smaller retirement account gives you more flexibility in making decisions. And, obviously the more you have, the more decisions you can make. But again, it's not, more money doesn't give you a higher quality of retirement. It just gives you more choices. And number 5, do you plan to become more conservative with your money after retirement? And that's a tough question, because it's really tough to change a standard of living unless it's done dramatically. And we had a client come in and he wanted to retire in about 16 months, and he had a big mortgage, and he had a very expensive car, and he had a very expensive country club. And I said, you've got a big house. Who comes to your house? He's got a pool. He had the whole thing. And I really had to tell him, if it's just you and your wife, which it was, and the kids didn't seem to come home anymore, they lived out of town, it's time to sell the house and downsize significantly. I also told him he had to get rid of that Lexus. Nothing against Lexuses. They're great cars, but his Lexus payment per month was incredible, and he needed to give that car up. And the last thing was the country club. He was spending about $900 a month on his country club, and I said, how many rounds of golf did you play this year? And he looked at me with a sheepish grin. He said 4 times. So he played 4 rounds of golf for about $10,000 a year. That golf course must be pretty special. But we had to eliminate some of those things and redo his finances so that he could live the lifestyle, in retirement that he'd hoped to live. Because on the course he was on, with the big mortgage on the house, the big loan on the Lexus and the country club, he would have defunded himself in about 3 years.
Ouch.
He would have run out of gas. And the only thing he would have had left is Social Security. And that's not going to pay all your bills.
Right. I love that you asked that question about being more conservative. I've had many, many conversations with people who say, well, no, I want to maintain the exact quality of life that I have right now in retirement. And a lot of times that's just not the case. So make sure you take time and really think about those questions here in this financial category, because they're really good information for your advisor, along with all of these other sections. And this next section is, well, it really piggybacks off what you were just talking about there with the gentleman downsizing, not only his car, but in his country club membership, but also his home. So talk to everybody about what questions they need to ask themselves about their living situation.
Okay. When it comes to your home, do you plan to move into a smaller home that's easier to maintain during retirement? If you pay a lot in property taxes and you have a lot of empty rooms, that's a lot of wasted money. So you may want to downsize, pay less tax. It's easier to maintain, and it makes your life better because you're not spending all day cleaning the house. Number 2, as long as your health remains good, do you plan to perform the maintenance on your house yourself? Okay, who's going to maintain your house for you? Are you going to do it, or are you going to hire someone to do it? Number 3, how do you plan to pay for contractors to remodel your home at some point during retirement? Okay, if your home needs some updates, and all homes do, it seems styles change, new technologies come out, and many people want to redo something in their house, add hardwood floors, add a new kitchen, add a new fireplace, improve the deck, and things like that to make it more user-friendly, but also to add some value for a resale. And how are you going to pay for that going forward? The 4th one is, are you going to use your home equity as a source of retirement income? And this is a tough question because on TV, you're bombarded with commercials about reverse mortgages. And it sounds so easy on TV to use your house as a source of income. But many times I see that as the last resort if you have no income or not enough income in retirement. Because if you start taking from your house, you may run out of gas, meaning you'd use up all the equity in your house too quick. You may not be living in that house forever. And at that point, if you have a loan against it with a reverse mortgage, the bank gets your house. Mm-hmm. You really have very little to sell. And lastly, number 5, do you plan to relocate when you retire? An interesting fact is parents that retire many times move to where the grandchildren are. And, to have a meaningful existence with your grandchildren is exceptional, and many people move for that. So that accomplishes 2 things. If you decide, hey, I'm going to move to where my grandkids are, you can downsize. You can add, you can put yourself in a great position, live in a community that's very uplifting, live in a community that has quite a few different activities for seniors. So if you do plan to relocate, where will you relocate to and for what reasons? Many people like to relocate to the south because it's too cold in Syracuse during the winter. And again, I was on the phone yesterday with a client that lives down just north of Fort Lauderdale, and we're talking how great the weather is. Except the conversation turned to, Chip, it's so hot down here in the summer, I can barely take it. And he goes, so we're balancing the cold of the winter with the heat of the summer, and we got to have a happy medium. And so it's a tough one. So again, it's about research. It's about planning. Where do you want to be? How do you want to live? Your house, many times, is your greatest asset. And you got to really take care of that. Because at some point you may want to sell the house, and you got to make sure you're going to get the value of that house. So doing some updates over time is a good move.
I love how you talk about moving close to grandkids, because I'm seeing that within my own family. In this next section, the second to the last one, number 8 here, the questions that you need to ask yourself in life planning, are your relationships. So how are you beginning this conversation, and what is the end result of a lot of these conversations you have with your clients?
Well, I'm trying to find out from the client what's most important to them. And many times it is relationships and who they have the relationships with. So the first question is, do your children or parents rely upon you for financial support? And, I try to counsel them on that. My mom's 88 years old. She's very independent. She still lives in the family house. I go visit her as often as I can. I try to call her every day on my way home from work. I have a brother that goes to visit her every week, but she doesn't need financial support. She many times needs emotional support. Just someone to talk to, someone to say hello to, or we go over and we bring her over to my house if we're going to have a nice dinner or something like that. So the financial support's important, the emotional support as well. The question number 2 is, I plan to spend more time with children and grandchildren during retirement. And that's very uplifting. I'm a new grandfather. I have a almost 2-year-old grandson and another one on the way. And I'll tell you what, spending time with that little guy is one of the best parts of my life. And I see a picture of him and my face just lights up. And so, having the access, my daughter doesn't live in town, so we have to travel to see her. But with new technologies, we can FaceTime with her every single day, her and her little son. It's great. Number 3, will you spend time with friends during retirement? And that comes back to your social circle and things like that. And having friends, being engaged, having activities to go to together, relying on each other, sharing dinner, sharing lunch, and things like that. Again, it adds value to your life in a way that you can't quantify. Number 4, do you consider that your retirement transition may cause marital stress? And we've seen that before. We had somebody in last week. The husband's going to retire this April, and the wife's going to work for another year. And the husband's pretty excited. He's going to retire April 1st. We gave him permission to retire. We said he could make it financially. But then we talked to the wife a little bit, and she was a little bit sour grapes that he was going to retire and she'd be getting up every day to go to work. So I said, how can we overcome this so that her job that she likes, but how is it going to be okay for her to get up in the morning? And after a little bit of a discussion, the husband said that he would get up every single day she goes to work and have breakfast with her and see her off every morning.
That's awesome.
And that was all it took to brighten her disposition. She was now encouraged by it. And, I don't know if he went to bed 15 minutes after she left, but he's planning to get up with her every single day that she goes to work and have breakfast together and see her off. And that's just great. The last one is, do you want to leave money to your family and friends when you do die? And again, that's the estate planning. Do you want to leave? Who do you want to leave it to? And how much? And who are those important people in your life that you want to benefit? And it could be individuals within your family. It could be a charity. It could be a college or university. And I'll tell you, there's great satisfaction in doing something like that and have it be permanent and do it in your will or a trust. Because you know that you've done something that's exceptional. You know that your money is going to a great cause because it's something you support. And it really gives you positive feedback. It really does. So we encourage that type of planning. And many people don't think they have enough money to live on in retirement, and we'll show them how to do that. But if they can leave something to a charity, to an institution, to a college, whatever, that's very uplifting. Mm-hmm. And it's doing something that's bigger than yourself. And that makes my clients smile, it really gives them a lot of positive feedback.
And you have questions that people need to ask themselves about community and charity, which is that last section. So let's go through those questions.
Okay, so in terms of your community or your favorite charity, do you want to contribute time or money within your community? Okay, and where could you do the most good? How can you help? One of our retired clients is on the board of a charity that feeds homeless people, and I'll tell you what, she's passionate about it. It's part of her social circle, and she does an exceptional job. And it's uplifting to hear her come in and talk about it. It's tremendous. Number two, are you currently involved with your favorite charity? And if you're not, how could you get involved? What would make it right for you to be involved and really take something positive from that? It's great. It really is. Number three, do you want to give money to a charity in retirement, even if you're on a fixed income? And again, I spoke about this just a minute ago. You may not think you have enough money to retire on. When we go through the numbers and we can show that you do, would you like to leave something, even if it's relatively small? But a gift like that has tremendous meaning, and we encourage clients to do that. Number four, do you want to give money to a charity upon your death? Okay, many clients will put in their will a clause or something to leave to a foundation, a college, a university, or some type of an entity. And again, your money is living on, and that's what my clients see. And really, that's, again, it's all positive. It's very, very, very good for everybody. And the last one is, do you understand the tax advantages of charitable giving? Sometimes you can give money to a charity and take a nice tax deduction for it. How would that affect you? Would it lower your taxable income? We all want to pay as little tax as possible. Perhaps donating to a charity instead of to the federal government may make a lot of sense. But these things, really, these exercises, they try to help our clients focus on what's important to them during the retirement process.
And I can't think of a better place to end our 9 areas of life planning. And the questions that you should be asking yourself and taking those answers after you think about them, expand on them to your financial advisor. Chip, just take us through those 9 one more time before we end today's podcast.
Okay, let's start right at the top. Number 1, education and growth. Number 2, health and fitness. Number 3, leisure and recreation. Number 4, spirituality. Number 5, career and work. Number 6, financial. 7 is home. 8 is relationships. And number 9 is community and charity.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Chip. I know that if our audience wants to find out more about how they can take this class and learn more about life planning and really the overall how you do retirement planning today, that they can go on your website and find out. And they can also call your office. And what's your office number again?
Our office number is 315-701-4440. And we have a couple classes coming up this spring. So give us a call and we'll put you on the list.
That's fantastic. And what we're going to continue to do is we're going to continue working on this presentation that Chip does at local colleges in the greater Syracuse area. Next time, we're going to talk about the retirement planning process. Chip, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Matt.
And I hope all of you have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Planning Show, your source for financial strategies to help you retire with confidence. Featuring Chip Coughlin of Retirement Income Analysts in Syracuse, New York. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Partners Limited, a registered investment advisor. Stratos Wealth Partners Limited and Retirement Income Analysts, LLC, are separate entities from LPL Financial. For more information and self-help tools, visit retirementincomeanalysts.com.
Securities offered through LPL Financial. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Stratos Wealth Partners, a registered investment advisor. Stratos Wealth Partners and Retirement Income Analysts, LLC, are separate entities from LPL Financial. Content in this material is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly.